Speaking of Courage podcast episode, who knows? Who
I'm
cares?
not sure. We've already lost count. We've
lost count. We got one coming up. We got some video stuff coming up. More content. Chase is gonna put me through hell at the range.
Gonna try to get some Donnie and some old vintage gear, kind of show them what it's like to be a soldier.
Gonna show you guys how much of a wimp I really am.
Yeah, see if we can fire some old weapons, some World War II, Vietnam, all that good stuff.
Dude, I think last episode might have been one of my favorites.
The Air Corps?
There's something about Leland's picture. I don't know. There's something like with certain pictures, they seem like old-timey photos.
Right.
And then there's other pictures that you see where it seems like it could be a guy you grew up with.
That's interesting, too, because if you look at old pictures, like if you look at Civil War photos, a lot of people don't identify with them because they look so different, they're dressed so different. But when they colorize them, sometimes you'll see them and you're like, wow, I get it now.
Yes.
And that's why people tend to identify with Vietnam War, also because a lot of the veterans were alive. But those pictures, they're listening to the same music as us. They're living like us, you know. Even in World War II, they're listening to swing music and dancing. That's a little foreign to us. In Vietnam, they're listening to, you know, Creedence Clearwater Revival, and they're carrying the weapons that we carry, and they look like us, and they do the things we do. So there is that. When you identify with the past like that, it does have a big effect.
Leland, all the pictures we had were black and white, but that is very true because like you'll see a color photo of World War II in color, and you're like, oh, all of a sudden it looks human.
It changes it. Yeah,
it looks human.
It definitely.
You know what I mean? And it's like, man, I don't know. How do they do that? Is that just a crazy process?
The colorization?
Yeah.
No, you can buy apps and do it with the photos and stuff
and
like that.
And it looks pretty good?
Sometimes it depends on how good the person is. You can do it good, but there's a lot of people that don't do it so well out there. You'll see them.
Yeah, like a lot of the World War II stuff when they're in Germany, and like the color is just insane.
If you watch the
books
same,
you brought.
if you see the same pictures in black and white or in color, it's night and day difference on how you identify.
You almost can identify with how a lot of that stuff happened just based on the contrast.
Right.
It's so weird how much color comes into it, man.
Yeah.
So that was a local guy that we did last week, and I think that's going to get a little more headway. A lot more people that I put it on there. I think the Norton Air Force Base connection.
Yeah, that's cool. It's good when people can relate. One of my buddies, he trained me at an FTO at in my job. He was one of my trainers, John Geis. His dad was in the Air Force, earned a Purple Heart in Vietnam, and he mentioned that he used to live on Norton Air Force Base, and that's how their family got out there. So that instant connection there, you know. And he lives up in the high desert, but a lot of that, you know, this whole area is around there because
it's kind of like because it's such a big thing in our community. Mm-hmm. But did you see the ice cream shop newspaper article that I found? You got to watch on the video where he worked.
Oh, okay.
I found an actual newspaper article of that ice cream place.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Dude.
And again, you can, like I said, if you like old movies, The Best Years of Our Lives, it's one of the best military movies ever made. It's about coming home and everything. But there's the one Air Force guy, and he goes from being working at an ice cream shop when he's younger, and just a few years later, he's in charge of this bomb group, just like Leland, and then he comes back and he's trying to get back to his life.
Was it made before Leland? Or
do
you think it was inspired
had
by
nothing
him?
to do with him. No.
Oh, okay.
No. It was made in 1946, actually.
Oh, wow.
Right at the end of the war, after the war ended, but
crazy.
Coincidental.
So where are we headed today?
All right, so we're going World War II again. Back to the Pacific. We did Clarence Craft. That's the kind of the lost episode.
Yeah. It's coming out next week.
Yeah, which is the Army in the Pacific. So we're back to the invasion of the Philippines, the retaking of the Philippines.
Okay.
As it were. So
when we got shot out of the Philippines?
So that was the initial. That was early 1941, 1942. Right after Pearl Harbor, Bataan and Corregidor fell. It was one of the largest defeats in American history. Huge psychological effects. Thousands of prisoners were taken. Thousands of Americans and Filipinos were killed.
That's where they were backed up, right? And they just had to either surrender or die.
Correct.
Yeah.
On the Corregidor was the island fortress, kind of, but the guys ran out of ammunition, they ran out of food, they ran out of malaria pills, they were sick, they were dying, and they fought out for months trying to hold off this onslaught, but hoping that our troops would be able to come reinforce them and support them, and they just never came. So they called themselves the Battling Bastards of Bataan.
Yeah.
The poem was "Battling Bastards of Bataan, no mama, no papa, no Uncle Sam," meaning they just felt forgotten, and they were.
Wow.
So these guys were out there. So it was a huge moral defeat. It was a huge physical defeat. It was a huge, for our military, it was a huge loss, and it stung real bad, So by 1944, when the tides of war had turned and we were coming back, this was the retaking of the Philippines.
So the Philippines were already taken over by the Japanese?
The Japanese occupied the Philippines.
So they beat us
the war.
out of there.
They smashed us out of there at the beginning of the war, and then they occupied the Philippines.
The war continued.
So then they progressed, and then when we started pushing back, by the end of the war, we were able to retake the Philippines and try to retake our honor and liberate some of those prisoners and those Filipinos that had fought so hard for so many years.
Man, these are stories I never even knew. I never even knew that happened.
Even within the context of World War II, a lot of the Army's battles in the Pacific are forgotten. People think the Marines fought in the Pacific and the Army fought in Europe, when both, the Army fought everywhere.
Yeah.
The Marines did too, but the Army, the Philippine campaigns and things like that, they were very hard fought, very massive battles, but they're largely forgotten to the average person, I would say.
Yeah. So what's going on with our guy today?
Okay, so we got Ysmael Villegas, and I'm probably going to pronounce that wrong. Ysmael Villegas, yeah, from Casablanca, Riverside, yeah. Oh,
really?
Yeah.
Casablanca?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so he's from Riverside over there, and fortunately, Villegas, he actually gets some credit. They actually have a statue to him in a park and everything like that, which is awesome. But he's one of those you read about, and his story to me is just badass. He's just kind of the epitome of a soldier. He's one of my favorites, and he has been. And then just the local connection. So again, trying to bring everything back. San Bernardino County is the largest county in the contiguous United States. Riverside's, I think, the second largest. But together, we're the Inland Empire.
Yeah.
It's even though we're huge, they're not that populated. So we have a lot of connection between San Bernardino and Riverside.
Totally.
So it's still the Inland Empire, so he's still kind of a local guy to me.
We still identify. Oh, I would definitely consider that local for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So Ismael Villegas, like a lot of people at the time, he's Hispanic, from a large Hispanic family. He's actually the oldest of 13 kids.
Nice.
So, large family. He's the oldest brother, so that's going to make a certain type of person, right? So I think a lot of what you'll hear later comes from that. That leadership, that looking out for other people. I bet you, when you hear about his citation, what he did, it's probably the same thing he would have done for his brothers back home and his little sisters and everything.
Yeah,
like
when you're in a family of 13, you're definitely more of a parent than a brother.
Exactly, especially in a Hispanic family like that. Those the oldest brother might be 20, 21, the youngest might be 6 months old.
Exactly.
The older ones are raising the younger ones
dad's
as well
working.
and helping, and dad's working, and the older kids are working and everything like that. So you have that responsibility and that leadership that's going to come from a young age. And I think that's very evident with Ismael here. And again, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He actually spelled it Ysmael instead of the IS.
Wow, that's a trip. I've never seen that name.
I haven't either.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's one of the rarer ones. I have a lot of weird Hispanic family names too. You'll see them sometimes, and it's interesting.
So he grew up in Riverside?
Yeah, he grew up from cradle to grave in Riverside, basically.
Really?
So he's born in Casablanca, goes to school in Casablanca.
What exactly is Casablanca? I don't want to go too much on a tangent, but I've heard that before. Is it like a hood?
Kind of. Yeah, there's actually a gang that goes
that's
by
what I
that
thought.
name. That's probably might be where you've heard it now.
Yeah.
But like a lot of the locals there want to put out, it's not, when you think of it, you shouldn't, the first thing you think of shouldn't be the gangbangers. It should be Ismael Villegas and Duran, and there's several Medal of Honor recipients from this area that we're going to talk about, in Lara, and all these people that came from there that fought. Per numbers of people who fought per population, it's a very proud community, and they have a lot of military service there. So it'd be better if we could think, when we think Casablanca, when we think of Riverside, we should think of Ismael Villegas and guys like that.
Which is a huge part of why we do this podcast.
Exactly. And there's a lot of people in Riverside that have Riverside pride. You see a lot of that tattoo, the bell
the
Riverside
everywhere and everything
like that. You see it
tattooed
everywhere.
that 100 times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when you guys are wearing it, like, hopefully you have this in your heart too, and things like that. So that's kind of the idea here.
So is Casablanca, is that a community name, or where does that come from?
It's my understanding is it's kind of like Lagonia and Redlands. It's the older name of the part of the city, and then it's absorbed as the Hispanic population area of Riverside. But I'm not 100% sure on that, and I apologize if I'm wrong.
If you guys know,
understanding.
Comment and let us know what it is.
One of the addresses is Casablanca Street, that Duran was
So maybe
from,
it's like a main strip.
So
or
I think
something.
like you said, like Lagonia and Redlands is,
Cool, man. Raised in Riverside. Riverside has a real deep history, too.
Yeah.
It's very similar to Redlands. The President of the United States has stayed at the Mission Inn.
It's a mission city.
Yeah. So the Mission Inn is like a real famous hotel where multiple presidents have been there, right?
Yeah, but it's a mission. The California's history is the mission districts. Father Serra, Junipero Serra moved up. They would stop and build the missions every so that Camino Real.
Yeah.
That's the missions where the Spanish church.
So is the Mission Inn part of that?
Yeah, that was a mission.
It was a mission.
Yeah. So that's all. And there's one in Redlands too. And stuff. So it's got a deep history. It was one of the same as San Bernardino, Pueblo de Los Angeles and San
Yeah.
Bernardino. That was a lot of the
A lot of
Hispanic
cool-
California that was here.
A lot of great architecture and history. You can feel it in the buildings when you're down there. Very similar to Redlands. It almost feels like a sister type city.
Right.
You know?
But by the 1940s, when Villegas is around the area, it's just like the rest of California.
Orange
you know?
groves.
Orange groves everywhere. And it's interesting because if you look at Villegas's, everybody has their draft notice and they list their occupation. His says farmer on it. But he wasn't a farmer, he was an orange picker.
Yeah.
Which, again, from this area, you know what that
Deep
means.
heritage, man.
Right. We're all about I have an orange tattooed on my arm, right?
Yep.
That's a big part of our culture here for all of us. So he picked oranges to help his family, right?
One of my buddies, the owner of Rosa Maria's up the street, big famous Mexican chain around here, Mexican food, he has a big traditional tattoo of a orange picker on his arm.
That's
dude.
badass.
That's where his family came from.
Right, and that's part of the culture
Yeah.
here too. Is from whatever side of it you're on, and we still have that today. All the orange groves everywhere, and
Yeah.
there's a drive to keep the orange groves and keep it alive. So just to show how deep his roots are here,
Yeah.
he's an orange picker from Casablanca, Riverside. Right,
That's awesome.
Oldest of 13 kids. They nicknamed him Smiley, according to the family. Everybody just got along with him. He was always happy. If you see some of his pictures, he's got a big smile on his face.
Yeah.
You know, just skinny Hispanic kid. He stayed home for most of the war, not until 1944 when he was drafted. So the war was, again, 1941 to 45 for America. It lasted, it started before that in other places. But with us, it was December 7th, 1941.
And he got drafted?
So he was drafted in July of 1944.
Oh, so it's late.
Late in the war, pretty late in the war considering the
And
war.
they were still, so the draft was still going on up until that point, huh?
The draft went through after the war. People were getting drafted after the war too, because we still had other duties. Yeah.
I didn't know it was like that.
Yeah.
I thought like the draft was like when you really needed people and you know what I mean when you're about
Yeah,
to
it's
set up.
the whole Selective Service Act and everything. Like I said, the draft in World War II was a little different than Vietnam. It was almost to regulate people coming in more than trying to get people. And a lot of people, again, they're waiting for basically their draft notice. So Villegas is one of those. He was in no hurry to leave home because he has obligations to his family, right?
Yeah.
He's helping raise the kids and everything. But when the time came, it's time for him to go. So he joined the Army, and he became an infantryman, as a lot of those guys did.
Infantrymen being frontliner.
Yeah, infantry is just basically a foot soldier. So if you talk about, you know, an engineer, what's an engineer's job? They build bridges, they destroy things, you know, they take things apart, they put things together, and they fight. Tankers, they operate the tanks, they do this and that, they cook. The infantryman's whole job is to kill the enemy. Your whole job is to carry a rifle or a machine gun. When I joined the Army, they have job descriptions that are like paragraphs long. They're trying to make things cool. The infantry just says your job is to close with and destroy the enemy. That's it. So
Isn't that cool?
That's what it means.
But it's a very dangerous position too, right?
Oh, absolutely. And in World War II, I mean, they were taking 50% of the casualties when they were 14% of the force or something like that. That's where you get the extra combat infantry badge and the blue cord and the blue discs. And a lot of other branches or fields will look down on you like, oh, you're just a dumb grunt. So it becomes the point of pride. Like, we're the ones doing all the fighting, you know.
So it's almost like an embrace thing, like, we
definitely.
are.
Yeah, and
we are the
there's derogatory terms again. You know, the infantry call other people pogues, which is personnel other than grunts, or piece of garbage is one of the other sayings that we have. And in Vietnam, they would say REMF, which is rear echelon motherfucker. And stuff, you know, there's a lot of pride in pissing contests.
I love all those little military, like last episode with the caterpillar silk and
I saw you found the pictures.
Yeah, you see that? The goldfish. I love those little hidden meaning things because those aren't actually handed out by the military, right?
Right, and those they're unauthorized too, so it's funny to see people wearing them, you know, trying to get away with what they can get away with.
I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so Villegas is, like I said, he's drafted in July. He goes to his boot camp, and then he ends up fighting in the Philippines with the 32nd Infantry Division, which is the Red Arrow Division, and they had some of the most combat in the entire war was this division. They actually were one of the first offensive units. They fought in New Guinea, Guadalcanal, things like that. It was a Wisconsin National Guard guy as initially until they got all the replacements.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
What can he face? So he gets drafted. Where does he go from there? He's going to boot camp?
So boot camp can be anywhere. There was all kinds of little posts and forts all over there. So yeah, you're going to go to your boot camp, which is depending on what your job is and things like that, however many months it's going to be. But he gets drafted in July, and by March, he's fighting in the Philippines as a staff sergeant already. So, you know, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, he's already made it to staff sergeant, and he's in charge of his squad.
So a year prior, he's
oranges.
burping his baby sisters, picking oranges.
Exactly.
And less than a year later, he's a staff sergeant fighting in one of the hottest.
The Philippines. Right.
Wow.
Yeah, sitting in a hole in the mud, being responsible for other men's lives. 20 years old at this time.
That's one of the craziest things that of just sitting with you and learning about this stuff is the time period with some of this stuff. Like we were talking last week with Leland Norton. you know, one year you're in there doing ice cream scoops to your friends, and the next year you are a bomber pilot,
right, in charge of the squadron.
In charge of the squadron, like man, how do they prepare these kids that fast?
Right.
You know,
and how there's so much responsibility on these guys, and then it's just, you know, they're back to civilian world. Hey, go back to fixing a car or whatever that may be.
It's almost like that pressure just makes people better,
right,
or something. You know, like
it's a lot of responsibility. Sometimes if you give people responsibility, they'll rise to it, and some people don't. But a lot of people, there's Rambo's in some ways a terrible movie, but at the end when he's crying and he's breaking down and he's like saying, you know, when I was in Vietnam, we were in charge of $1 million pieces of equipment, and over here I'm a piece of shit and they won't even give me a job. There's a lot of truth to that, you know, because even, you know, if you're a mechanic, those are very expensive pieces of equipment that you're dealing with, that you're responsible for. You're responsible for people's lives, essentially.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy.
I gotta drive
so he goes from picking oranges, and within a year, he's a staff sergeant in the Philippines.
Yeah, he's a regular kid. Like I said, the little information I found, the biographical sketches, said he liked to dance, he liked swing music, the big band, you know, the Glenn Miller Orchestra, the kind of stuff you think about World War II, so you can picture him going out and dancing, you know, wearing the big flashy clothes and things like that, with whatever money he could squirrel away from trying to support his family and things like that. He's got a girlfriend, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in this hell of the Philippines, in this very small part of this very large war.
Yeah.
So the Philippines, like we talked about, a lot of it was for national pride to take it back. MacArthur was the general that left, and his famous quote was, "I shall return." They would broadcast that at the end of the propaganda things every night, and they would squirrel it away, the ISR on things.
Yeah.
Because the Filipino population suffered immensely to support us. They were getting slaughtered by the Japanese, and they stayed loyal to us.
Did they feel betrayed by us leaving?
No, they didn't.
No.
They fought with us. They died with us. They saw us leave, and then the other guys stayed with them there, and were in the camps with them dying and things like that. And when we did return, when MacArthur announced I have returned, they came flooding back, and they did everything they could to support us. And they died. For every one of us that died, 10s and 20s of them died, and they fought their asses off.
Man, so okay, we get beat off the island. We in essence surrender that
right, it was
battle.
the largest surrender in American history.
Okay, so then what does the Philippines look like? We leave.
So during the occupation by the Japanese, 90,000 Filipino civilians were killed over
Just
the course
executed?
between 1942 and 1945 when we returned, just slaughtered, getting killed.
You say 90,000?
90,000, that's what I said, yeah. Villages burned, women raped, again, just horrific. Manila, so don't think of the Philippines as this backward island. Manila was an American city, you know.
That's 30 9/11s, just to put it into perspective. You know what I mean? As far as like, it's all good. That's 30 9/11s. Mm-hmm. If you think about like as far as losses.
I mean, there's I don't know if you know anything about the Philippines. It's actually thousands of little islands, but the population-wise, it's nowhere near.
No.
You know. And
so I mean, were they just executing them?
To a degree. So we talked about the Bataan Death March, where thousands of Filipinos and Americans were marched however many miles, and if they were slowing down, they would stab them, they would chop their heads off, they'd shoot them, they'd torture them, they'd do all these things. When they're put in the camps, they were torturing them. You know, the most horrendous things you can think of. The Japanese, they found I don't remember what the name of the document was, but when we reinvaded, they found a Japanese leaflet that was issued out that basically said any Filipinos that are found on the field of battle will be executed, telling you, like, if you help the Americans, you're dead. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You're dead. And they were still risking their lives and their families. They were still going out there and scouting. They were still blowing the bridges. They were still sabotaging. They were still doing all these things. They were still fighting beside us. You know, it's almost easier for us as soldiers. If I die, I die. If you die, you die. But if you're a Filipino, your mom might die, your dad might die. They call
you
them,
have a lot more to lose.
Yeah, the pronunciations, the barrio, you know, like the barrio,
barrio.
Yeah, because they have Spanish heritage there too in the Philippines.
Yeah.
They would burn them, you know, and these guys would lose their whole communities, but they still fought. They never gave up, and
What was the pride?
Loyal.
What was the pride to that?
Well, the Japanese treated them so horribly. They wanted vengeance.
Yeah.
You know, the Filipinos are a fighting people, and that's the thing is we were at war with them 40 years earlier for our occupation of the Philippines. Yet when it came time for World War II, it was a beautiful partnership. You know, we loved them and they loved us, and they fought to the death for it.
It's another thing that goes to the kind of like the psychology of war is treating your enemies, right? Like how you treat your enemies and stuff. When you, I don't even know if the movie's accurate, but The Patriot, they're talking about. It's probably not, but how the gentlemanly way to do things and stuff like that. And then that one general was going around and killing families and stuff. And then,
well, if you shift back to Europe at the end of the war, when the Soviets are coming in from the east and we're coming in from the west, the Germans were surrendering in droves to us, because if they fought the Soviets, they'd either get killed, put in prison camps, or tortured. If they surrendered to us, we'd give them candy bars and repatriate them, basically, right?
Yeah.
So we lost less men by being compassionate, right?
Oh, because you didn't have to fight them to the death.
Right, because
they know if you capture them, you're going to kill them.
War's over anyways. They don't even want to fight. Should I fight to the death and be potentially tortured, or should I just give up and be done with it? So they'll come over to our side.
So that's a huge part of why they treat POWs and stuff.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah, and there's...
Because then you don't have to fight as hard.
Right.
They'll surrender. I didn't even think about that. That's interesting, man.
That's
I love
part of
the
it. The other part
psychological
is
part.
Yeah, the other part is honor. You want to treat them like you'd be treated. It's the golden rule, right?
Yeah.
We can't, chastise people and be like, how dare you torture our prisoners if we're going to do the same thing back? So we need to, treat them with respect and dignity as soldiers and expect the same from them.
Man. So what year does he get over there?
So 1944. So again, he's drafted in July of 1944. January of 1945 is when we're invading the island of Luzon, which is the largest island in the Philippines, is where they're going to be fighting. So as their American troops are coming in, again, thousands of islands. We're fighting all over these islands. The first Cavs there, that's my unit.
Yeah.
Rod Serling from the Twilight Zone, he's fighting in the Philippines. He was wounded, and he was an airborne soldier. I think he took shrapnel in his knee and things like that. But these guys, the 32nd Infantry Division, they're landing on Luzon. So as they're moving into the Lingayen Gulf, they're passing these shipwrecks of Japanese ships, right? So you can picture this hell. It's almost like a Dante's Inferno type situation, right? Young kid, you're just enjoying your life, and a few months later, you're passing the wreckage of Japanese warships, these giant ships that are sticking up out. You're seeing explosions going off. You're seeing all this stuff. Because as soon as the Americans started landing, the Japanese started slaughtering. They started killing prisoners, our prisoners. They started killing the Filipinos.
As soon as they saw us coming?
Right, as soon as they knew the gig was up, right? So that's going on. And as soon as we started breaching and landing, the Filipinos rose up. So they start mock battles in the south. So the Japanese think they're over there. They're blowing up bridges. They're, killing the Japanese where they can get them and everything like that. So this island is just chaos at this point, right? This is what you're seeing as you're landing.
And not only are you seeing that, this is before social media. This is before you go on a vacation and you fly out to another country.
Right.
This kid probably had never seen anything
like this. He probably never left Riverside County.
Probably never been to the beach.
Exactly. Yeah. Potentially, never been out of the state for sure, at least, and now you're on a tropical island, in the Pacific.
Probably on a ship or something for the first time.
Yeah, they're on a ship. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All these things. So then they land, and the island battle is chaos. It's huge. So most of the Pacific's battles were small scale in movement. Luzon is huge, so there's these major operations until they get to what's called the Villa Verde Trail, which is where he ended up seeing his action. And the Villa Verde Trail is just what it sounds like. It's a trail, right? So the trail goes up to 4,000 feet in elevation above sea level. And you're starting at sea level. So they're walking 4,000 feet up, right? The whole trail is 27 miles long. In the end, it took 119 days of fighting to reach a 20...
To get there?
To fight across the 27-mile trail. So for 119 days, it took us to fight the Japanese on this trail.
So basically get to Big Bear. Maybe a little closer.
Right. But it's exactly. Height-wise and everything like that, it'd be similar because it's starting at sea level and things like that. But 27 miles, that's a half-hour drive in a car. It took them 119 days. I mean, you could do the math there, how far they moved each day. But
so is that marching, camping, marching?
No, this is fighting.
The entire
ducking
time.
Your head, fighting, ducking your head.
For 119 days.
For 119 days. Because what the Villa Verde Trail is it's a little goat path almost on the side of the cliff. Think of like when you're hiking through Yucaipa and stuff. Parts of it will go in through the valley, but the other parts are hanging off. Yeah. There's nowhere to go. So the enemy just has to be in front of you behind those switchbacks and things like that.
Yeah.
We've talked about charging up hills. This is on the side of the hill. This is fighting on the side of the Big Bear Mountains. There's nowhere to go, and it's easy for them to defend. I have a quote from one of the generals. He said, "The enemy had made good use of the terrain, which, with its sharp ridges and deep ravines, was ideally adapted for defense. He had dug innumerable caves, had provided defensive positions on the reverse slopes of the ridge, and had established excellent observation stations that permitted him to use artillery to his best advantage. Repeated personal observation convinced me that the advance along the Villa Verde Trail would be costly and slow." So again, they have their artillery position, they have everything else, just like we've talked about in these other episodes, right? The only difference is there's nowhere to go but on that trail. If that trail is one person wide or two people wide or three people wide, you're facing the enemy directly in front of you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm
been out in the sun all day.
Been out in
You're
the
all
sun
dehydrated.
all day, yeah. So the trail's hugging the side of the mountain, and they're moving forward,
This
right?
is probably what he sounded like going up the trail.
Probably a lot worse than that, right? So again, just to talk about the weather and stuff, so in the valley, in the lowlands, it's scorching hot. As you're getting up higher, there's torrential downpours. The dry season is ending, the wet season's coming on.
Jungle kind of?
Part of it's jungle, part of it's plains. This goes up into a valley on the other side of the hill, right?
Okay.
So it's all kinds of things in this little island.
You're getting all kinds of mixtures of different terrain, different weather.
You're constantly you're wet, you're constantly sweaty, you're getting eaten by bugs, your skin has a rash, your feet are rotten.
And you're a kid from Riverside.
You're a kid from Riverside or Wisconsin or wherever else.
One of the most easy, weather.
Nice climates.
Yeah, nice climate.
In earlier campaigns in New Guinea, actually, where the 32nd fought, I read a book when they were talking about these are what's called the herringbone twills they wore. This is an earlier pattern, but they ended up...
This is the name of the uniform is the herringbone?
Herringbone twill, HBTs. Yeah, this isn't the first pattern, but they were getting dysentery and diarrhea so bad they couldn't get their pants off, so they just started cutting the ass out of the pants so they could just defecate while they were walking. They wouldn't even stop walking. They would just go because it was so miserable, and the guys are losing 20, 30 pounds. This is earlier in the war and stuff.
Dude. Wow.
And you're fighting the enemy, and you're carrying your load, and you're carrying whatever else you have. So as they're moving... They're constantly getting picked off by snipers. So you'll move, then you'll get pinned down. Then you fight, you take that hole, and then you move, and you keep going forward.
Jesus. So you're constantly under the threat of getting sniped.
Right.
You have buddies falling around you. You don't know when it's your turn.
And we talked about a war of attrition last time. This is kind of the same thing. The Japanese are just grinding this out, right?
Yeah.
They know the war's over at this point. The war, there's no way they're going to win. They're just trying to inflict casualties, delay us, and prevent us from getting to their homeland. That's basically what they're doing at this point.
So what is the point of them even occupying at this point?
A conditional defeat. Like I said, we want a total victory. We want to remove we want to destroy their army. We want to dispose their empire or their emperor. We want to do all those things. They want to be like, all right, you guys won, but don't touch our island.
Yeah, and that's what they're still fighting for, and that's what
to a degree. And then they're fanatical. I mean, all kinds of side stories. There's Japanese soldiers who never knew the war was over and continued fighting till the 60s. That were up in the hills and things like that, sniping people and doing crazy stuff like that. Yeah.
In Japan?
In the Philippines.
In the Philippines. Just living up there.
Living up there. They never got the order to surrender. No one told them to, so they're just going to keep on fighting.
For 20 years?
For 20 years, yeah. I'll point you to some sources so you know I'm not bullshitting.
Oh, my. That sounds like just bullshit.
No, it's not. There's at least two that I know
believe you.
of.
I'm just saying. That's crazy.
There's one. The only way they got him down was they found his old commander who was still alive and living in Japan, and they had him go up there with like a loudspeaker and be like, you're allowed to. The war's over. Like I'm giving you an order.
It's been over, bro.
I'm giving you an order. Hey, bro, you're good now,
bro. We're good.
You're good. Exactly.
Can you imagine the little myths and stuff that would have happened to the little Filipino kids? They're like, there's crazy Japanese guy out there sniping people. Yeah, right.
Another, aspect of all of this, and all those landmines and stuff. A lot of those places are still there. A lot of those big unexploded ordnance, all those bombs and stuff.
Do they ever have those things that go off?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah? It still will happen from way back in the day?
There's, like, in Burma and India and Myanmar and all those places, they have squads that go out there and try to blow up all that unexploded ordnance. A lot of it's more recent, but even the World War II stuff's real volatile. A lot of the big bombs that dropped that didn't go off, now they're corroded and and those are huge bombs.
Yeah.
So, when the society's built around them now, it can be a very, very dangerous thing.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did he do?
All right, so think of the timeline-wise. Again, I'm not sure if he landed with the initial troops in January or when he got there, but just to make staff sergeant in that short amount of time is pretty impressive as well. Because in today's Army, their rank structure is a little different, but today it's private, private 2, private first class, specialist, or corporal, sergeant, staff sergeant. So he's already up like 6 ranks, right?
In less than a year.
Yes, in less than 8 months. And
then how long would that typically take?
It depends. In World War II, it was real different. It was way different. But it just shows you the leadership this guy has.
The cream would rise to the crop.
Exactly.
Rise to the top.
And again, I imagine that, when you're used to caring for 12 younger siblings, that probably has something to do with it. You're going to be around
have that paternal thing going.
Yeah, and some of these younger guys, they don't know how to freaking do anything away from home, and he might be, hey, I got this, I'll help you out. You're going to see those type of leadership
If
things.
he had 13 brothers and sisters, he knew how to do a lot.
For sure.
I guarantee
for sure.
And he was taking care of himself.
Exactly. So to me, that shines here, right? And you'll see some of his stuff that he does that he wants to look out for people. He's a born leader, right?
Yeah.
So March 1st, 1945, on the Verde Trail in Philippines, and I'm going to read this again. Villegas' unit was pinned down by machine gun fire. Acting as a scout for his patrol inside the enemy lines, Sergeant Villegas noticed the position of an enemy machine gun as it pinned the other members of the patrol to the ground with its fire. Signaling for his comrades to remain low, he moved against the machine gun, instantly becoming the target for frantic bursts of fire from the weapon and sniping fire. While the fire churned ground around him, he crawled close to the enemy and destroyed it and its crew with grenades. So March 1st, 1945, they're moving on the trail. They start taking sniper fire, and they start getting lit up with a machine gun. Everyone's putting their head down. Everyone's trying to return fire and do what they can, but he sees it. He sees the machine gun, right? So as a squad leader, what he can do and what he maybe should do is start directing fire. You guys do this, you guys do that. But as a guy that's looking out for his troops and a brother to 12 siblings, he decides, I'm not going to tell them what to do, I'm going to do something. Yeah. So he stands up and he charges forward, right? As he does so, again, it says that the fire's churning up the ground. Bullets are kicking up at his feet. There's dust rising. He charges forward, and then he hits the ground. He crawls forward, and he destroys the gun with grenades. So for this action, he's awarded the Silver Star. So we're not to his action yet.
Yeah.
This is just earlier in the month.
Just that one thing right there.
This is March 1st. He's already earned a Silver Star. He's already risked his life. He's already charged an enemy machine gun while he ordered his other guys to lay low. Hey, you stay here. I got this. He sprints forward. He hits the ground. He crawls forward, and he destroys that emplacement with a machine gun. So as a testament to how hard the fighting is, though, that's just another day. Keep moving. Keep moving. Guys are getting
you don't
killed.
get your Silver Star and go home.
Right. So March 15th.
Oh, a separate day.
Now we're on different things now.
Okay.
So March 14th.
2 weeks later.
Yeah, March 15th, he writes home, I got the Purple Heart. It's just a scratch on my ear because don't tell Mom because she would get worried. That's what he writes to his brother. So March 1st, he earns a Silver Star. March 15th, he earns a Purple Heart.
Oh, my God.
This shorts, I'm real sorry about the cough, and
Oh, it's all good.
March 15th, he earns a Purple Heart. I found his wound card because he had to go to an aid station to get treated. I do a little research on these, right? And it says, per the aid station card, it said he had a laceration to the ear, which was caused by a hand grenade. So that means he was hit by shrapnel in the ear. The grenade landed so close to him to send that piece of metal in his ear. So it's a minor wound. He's lucky that he got that minor wound. But again, we've talked about grenades. I've shown you the videos. Imagine how close of a call that would be. Grenade lands near you, explodes, the concussion, that round hits him, and it cuts his ear, right? Yeah. So in the span of 2 weeks, he's charged a machine gun, he's earned a Silver Star, he saved his men, and now he's been wounded, and he writes home, hey, no big deal, don't worry, Mom, right?
Don't tell Mom. So he's still looking out for the family.
Exactly.
From the battlefield.
Exactly. He's writing to his siblings, don't tell Mom. She's probably older right now.
But telling his brothers, hey, check it
out. Exactly. Yeah, right? So March 20th, 5 days later, right? This is all in the course of less than a month, less than 3 weeks. March 20th, 1945, the day before his 21st birthday. Okay,
he's 20 years old.
20 years old, the day before his birthday. His squad is ordered to take a hill. The enemy's entrenched on the hill, and they have machine guns and rifles, just like everywhere. When I say a switchback, think you're walking on a trail, and then it turns around a corner. When you turn around the corner, guess who's on the other side? Yeah. They're set up,
They're
right?
planted at all the best locations.
Exactly. So they start getting attacked by these machine guns and the rifle. Everybody's hitting the ground. They're trying to fight, but the enemy actually has built trenches and caves. They're 30 to 40 feet deep, so our artillery can't hit them. Nothing can do anything. So he moves from man to man to bolster the spirit of his men.
I haven't touched it.
No, I got mine over here still.
Yeah, you're going to run out pretty soon.
Thanks. Moved from man to man to bolster the spirit of his men through heavy machine gun, grenade, demolition, and rifle fire. So they're getting hit with everything. They're getting hit with artillery. They're getting hit with machine guns. In that leadership role, again, he's running from guy to guy. It's okay, I got this. Watch over there. Boom, boom. Trying to keep their morale up. Trying to keep
care
their
of
spirit.
Everybody.
Keep your head up. Stay in this fight, right? Yeah. Don't get that tunnel vision. Stay in that fight.
And if he's only been in for less than a year, I mean, where do you get that kind of experience to be that calm?
I think
under
a lot
fire?
of it is growing up, the way he did. But it's hard to say where you can find someone like that because again. Some of these guys he's been with, they might have been fighting for 3 or 4 years, and he's already in a leadership position over them.
Yeah,
right?
He's taking that leadership role, and it's not a leadership role under peacetime where it's assumed to or given to you, but it's in these battlefields. You would imagine that people would be drawn to a certain individual. It sounds like
it's a meritocracy at this point.
Is that what
meritocracy means? You're rewarded for your merit.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So you can be political or this or that, but if this guy is constantly acting like this, he's going to get some leadership. People are going to follow him regardless of whether or not you give him rank.
Yeah.
So the enemy this is not from his citation. This is from one of the witnesses to his action, the guy that was a lieutenant that was in the unit behind him that sees what's going on. The enemy was strongly entrenched in caves and camouflaged foxholes that overlooked the only route of approach. There's no way, you can't run down the hill and then run back up. Just think,
there's one way.
Yucaipa or Big Bear, things like that, those trails. Sergeant Villegas saw that a concentrated attack would mean high casualties, so he moved alone against the enemy in an effort to distract and force a path through the scattered enemy defenses. So you're on the trail, and there's 4, 5, 6 enemy positions over there, right? So this guy's saying that he recognizes that Villegas knows that a frontal attack, if they just keep charging, they're going to lose a lot of guys. So just like his earlier action, what are we, 19 days before, he decides he's going to get up and take it himself, right? Running like a football player, he charged the first Japanese and killed him with his rifle. So even this guy that's watching it, he thinks he's not in this necessarily combat mode. He's not low crawling. He's not moving timidly. He gets up and he charges,
aggressive,
running like a football player, just bull rushing. Now imagine again if you're the Japanese in that position, you're picking your targets, you're moving there down, and then you look up and this guy's just rushing headlong at you, and then you see the muzzle flash of his rifle, and then you slink into eternity as it is. You're dead because he kills that first Japanese with his rifle. All of the enemy weapons were brought to bear on him. So all these other foxholes, they see this. So that's doing two things. That's putting him more at risk, right? Because all these guys are trying to kill him.
Now they're going after him.
But it's also lifting the fire from his friends. So they're no longer in danger because he's taking it all, right? So he charges that first position like a football player, and he kills him with his rifle. The bullets caused dirt to spurt up at his feet. He whirled and headed for another foxhole, stood over it, and killed a Jap rifleman and headed for another. He killed 5 Japs that way. So 5 foxhole positions. He charges the first one, runs up, just blasts them. They start firing. He's taking it. The rounds are hitting on the dirt. He runs to the next one. He whirls. He fires his rifle. Pop, pop, pop. Probably hits the dirt, gets back up, charges the next one. The Japanese are completely firing at him, right? 5 different positions he hits.
Can you imagine? Just being like a guy in his, is it a platoon or something?
Yeah,
or
it's smaller size elements.
You're watching your leader just go from foxhole to foxhole, like, holy shit.
That's got to give you some confidence, though, right? That's got to be inspiring. And you would imagine
that every time he's successful, it gives him a little bit more confidence to do the next one.
And imagine the Japanese, right? Oh, you're firing, you're doing everything you can to stop this guy.
He looks bulletproof.
And he is bulletproof at this point, and he's destroying you, right? And they're ready to die for the Emperor, but they're not ready to die like this.
Yeah.
They're supposed to take 10 guys out for each person, and this guy's just slaughtering them now, right? Heading for the 6th foxhole, he had allowed every Jap on that hill to get a chance on him. To get a chance to get a bead on him. He went down in a tornado of fire. So by the time he got to the 6th foxhole, his luck had basically ran out. So the Japanese were able to put enough fire, and I found his casualty card there, that he was shot through the torso, and then he fell in a cloud of dust, and he was killed on that 6th foxhole. So he was able to engage 5. The guy continued, the lieutenant. The men were so incensed by his death that they charged the position and couldn't be stopped. They had moved in close while the enemy was concentrating fire on the sergeant and swept through the strong point, driving the enemy before them. When their charge was over, 75 lay dead in their foxholes.
That's crazy, man.
So again, not only is he charging and he's taking 1 foxhole, then 2 foxholes, then 3 foxholes, then 4 foxholes, then 5 foxholes, and then he's killed at the 6th. These guys watching him, like you just said, they're so inspired, they're so impassionate. They love this guy. He's saving their life right now. And then when they see him go down, imagine watching him fall and what that would mean to you, right?
He's a hero
He's absolutely a hero instantaneously. And some of them probably already, he might have already saved their lives in that earlier action.
Think about the impassioned, like how, to us, that's hero, right?
Exactly.
But to them, that's so much deeper of a hero if he's the one that say, you're starting to look at this guy like, man, like a big brother or a, you know what I mean? Like,
oh, absolutely.
Like,
he's been looking out for them. He's been taking the risks, and you're watching him do this heroic thing, and they're fighting too. They're not just laying there in awe. They're putting rifles down. He's dead. And he's dead. And this guy says, I love the verbiage, he went down in a tornado of fire. So it's not like, it doesn't sound to me like he's running and he fell and he hit the dirt. It sounds like he's on top of their position. Yeah. He's still firing.
Or he's taking in full bull rush mode.
And taking it, yeah. And his wound card on that one was, like I said, per his aid station card, it said, perforations, points of entry and exit to the thorax, bullet, rifle. So he had entry and exit wounds from rifle rounds into his midsection. So they're just firing up at him, and he fell with multiple rounds, and then he finally was killed. If that's what it took to finally stop him, was that 6th position and the whole Japanese position firing at him, which allowed his guys to get up, to move forward, and it allowed them the passion and the courage to do so.
And they just smoked everybody.
And then they slaughtered the hill. And I like how he says, incensed by his death, right?
Yeah.
Not just, like some of the other citations we've read or we've talked about where it allowed them to take the initiative because they're pushed back or this and that. This was that, and then it was also they're passionate now, right? How dare you? You just killed my brother, or I'm going to get you, right? And they go move over, and they were able to take this enemy position that had, in the end, 75 people. At least 5 of them were taken out by Villegas himself there.
Man.
So here's his official citation. Again, entered the service, Casablanca, Riverside, California. And again, that was the day before his 21st birthday.
God.
You remember where you were when you turned 21?
Jinko jeans and long bleached blonde hair.
Exactly, right? I actually turned 21 in Iraq, so it's similar. I wasn't doing anything like that. But I remember being 21 and the day before his 21st birthday. So here's a citation. He was a squad leader when his unit, in a forward position, clashed with an enemy strongly entrenched in connected caves and foxholes on commanding ground. He moved boldly from man to man in the face of bursting grenades and demolition charges. Through heavy machine gun and rifle fire to bolster the spirit of his comrades. Inspired by his gallantry, his men pressed forward to the crest of the hill. Numerous enemy riflemen, refusing to flee, continued firing from their foxholes. Sergeant Villegas, with complete disregard for his own safety and the bullets which kicked up dirt at his feet, charged an enemy position, and then firing at point-blank range, killed the Japanese in a foxhole. He rushed a second foxhole while bullets missed him by inches and killed one more of the enemy. In rapid succession, he charged a third, a fourth, and a fifth foxhole, each time destroying the enemy within. The fire against him increased in intensity, but he pressed onward to attack the sixth position. Just the way they write, it's getting worse and worse and worse, because that first one, the Japanese might not have noticed that he killed. The second one, they're seeing it, right? And then the fire against him is increasing.
They're getting desperate.
But he presses onward, right? We have to kill this
and he could have fallen
demon.
back.
Oh, he could have hit the dirt. He could have stayed there, and he would have been a hero, right? He would have been a hero after the first, after the second, after the third, after the fourth, after the fifth. But he pressed onward. As he neared his goal, he was hit and killed by enemy fire. Through his heroism and an indomitable courage and fighting spirit, Staff Sergeant Villegas, at the cost of his life, inspired his men to a determined attack in which they swept the enemy from the hill.
That's the first citation, or the first story that almost got me emotional. Dude. That one was,
almost,
that one was heavy, dude.
Yeah.
That one is just witnessing him go from one to
just
one
after the other.
Because I wasn't expecting him to die in the story.
Yeah, I try to keep a secret from you so you don't know.
Man.
But again, and you got to wonder what he's thinking, right? Like, is he thinking, I got lucky. Let me try another one. Man,
Just
I got lucky. Or do you think he knows at some point?
Hearing this, I think he, just a complete, based on the story, I think he is like, I'm bulletproof. You're not going to beat me. I'm going all the way.
Yeah.
You almost have to take an action like that. There's no half in. You're all in at that point.
But at what point is it from, you can't stop me, I'm going to take you with my force of will, to my luck's going to run out and I know it, but I'm not going to let my guys down, so I'm going to just keep pressing forward.
Maybe
I'm this far and I'm in that death ground, I'm just going to fight. I'm just going to fight.
And maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't.
Maybe courage will carry the day, and if it doesn't, at least I protected my guys.
I really think some of these guys just go, dude, if
I
go out.
Some of them don't remember their actions. Some of them, some of them were crying. Some of them were devastated. Some of them were in a fury. Some of them were angry. Some of them were high. Peter Lemon in the Vietnam War was high when he got his Medal of Honor.
And he came out and said that, huh?
Yeah, he said it. There's at least one more that I know of. There's a lot of different emotions on these. And then Clarence Craft, our lost episode, like I said, his guys that were watching him said he was possessed.
Yes.
They thought he was a devil possessed. They said, we knew that he was either going to get a Medal of Honor or die. And then when they asked him, he said, I knew exactly what I was doing, right? Just calm as shit. Like, I was never rattled, I think was his term. I was never rattled. I knew what I was doing. When everybody's like, God, what, how, what? He was like,
that's
doing
the
my
vibe
job.
I get from this guy.
Even the way he wrote, he charged like a football player. I just think he's just a stud.
Yeah, he's just that guy.
You can almost picture him, and I'm totally speculating right now, though, when like one of his younger brothers coming home beat up and him walking out the front door. Who did it? Who did it? I got this. No, not my brother. Nope. Let's go. And if they whoop him, bring it on again. You're not.
That's exactly, because especially the fact that you said he liked to dance and he was always smiling. Yeah. So he was a guy.
That personality almost reads through, and you'll see his pictures. He's got that smirk and things like that.
But if it comes down to business, it's going down.
Yeah, and guys like that. You might kick their ass, but they're never going to back down. You don't
want to fight them.
Exactly. They're gonna cinch their belt up, pull up their pants, and be like, all right, dude. Like, no, dude, Villegas, you're gonna get killed. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go down fighting, and that's exactly what he did. So to go back to the dates, though, March 1st, he earns a Silver Star. March 15th, he earns a Purple Heart. March 20th, he earns the Medal of Honor. And on April 1st, his son was born. So he actually, his girlfriend who he married on leave was pregnant. She gave birth to their baby boy on April 1st, and they didn't know he was dead yet because of the delay and how long it took, right, for that word to get home and things like that. So they don't know what's going on with him. They don't know that he's in this fight for his life. You know, they might have heard that he got the Silver Star. I don't even know if it had been awarded yet. They would have, they got that letter about it's just a scratch, don't worry about it, you know. But they might be thinking the same thing. He can get through anything. They have that baby boy. They're probably kissing him, telling him, you know, your daddy's coming home, and then they get the letter after that.
That's another part of his personality that comes through with the letter is he knows he's in hell.
Right,
He knows what he's facing, and he's making it seem like it's nothing
right.
to his
Don't
family.
worry about it. Yeah, because
you know?
He's going through so much, but he doesn't want to share any of his burden with them, right? The hell that he's existing in and the responsibility of the men that he has in all their lives, that's he can bear that, but he doesn't want his mom and his family to have to bear any of this. And he had at least one of his other brothers was in the service as well. I don't know any of the circumstances of that, but just think about that. And now go back to that charge that we were just talking about. Now think about doing that, knowing that your wife's pregnant.
That's what I'm saying. I was just going to say that.
And imagine how different that is now.
It makes it way different.
It's way different. I could do all kinds of things before I had kids, and now it's like I don't want my daughters growing up without me. But in that moment, he knew that he had to protect his guys, right? And that maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't, but he had a better chance than they did because he knows his skill and he knows his courage and he knows he can charge forward. So April 1st, like I said, that baby's born. I have a picture of my grandma Ash holding her oldest son, and there's a picture of my grandpa in a picture frame, and I never noticed it until later. It's because my grandpa was in Europe. He was fighting in Czechoslovakia.
So it's like a family photo.
And yeah, the baby's born without him. Like something like that, being the woman at home, you know, having a child, how big of a deal that is. And your loved one's away. You're not hearing from them for weeks, for months, and you don't know if they're ever coming home. And in this case, he didn't with Villegas.
Maybe the temperature of the country at that time made them fight more intensely because, like you said, you don't go home till the war's over.
Right.
So maybe the intensity of the way that they fought was because
there's definitely a degree of that.
To get to my family, I got to go through you. Yeah. And if that's what it takes, then so
I want to be at home with my loved ones, and I can't because of you.
Yeah.
Because of
so
you,
maybe that's what's doing it.
Because of you, Germany and Japan. Yeah. Because of you, the leadership, and to a lesser
the more
degree,
I
because
kill
of you,
of you,
exactly.
The quicker I get to go home.
If I have to go through every one of you to get home to see my family, it's going to be that.
Man, that was goosebumps stuff.
Yeah. So
man.
we'll never. You'll never know what he was thinking, man. But he knew he had a young wife that he married on leave.
Yeah.
He knew he had a baby on the way. He knew he had a mom. And again, I don't know, but I'm assuming his parents were older at this point because they have 13 kids. His mom's probably had a rough, tired life, and he wants to get back to her, you know?
Yeah.
He knows he has those little brothers and sisters that are looking up to him and that need him, and he still charged forward. 1 enemy foxhole, 2 enemy foxholes, 3 enemy foxholes, 4 enemy foxholes, 5, and then he goes down in a tornado of fire, pressing forward.
Which means he was running forward.
Right.
You don't go down in a tornado if you're creeping.
Probably firing from the hip.
Yeah,
you know, the one that says he's on top, just firing down into that
He's probably just feeling full of pride and like, oh, man. It's
on
just,
fire.
And then the other thing I think about when you hear these, because like you said, they're witnessed. So that you have...
this was witnessed by a good amount of people, too, and lieutenants and things.
A lot of alpha male types. And you know with alpha male types, the guys cut each other down sometimes. You know what I mean? So some of these citations are so intense that other men are like, no, listen. And they're putting each other over.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that, to me, makes it so much more special when it's other men that are going, this guy needs to be recognized.
Right.
Like, that was insane. And that makes... If it was insane for that guy, it was ridiculous for a guy like me. You know what I mean?
Potentially, there's guys that were in foxholes with him that went home and had kids, and they had kids, and there's generations of people alive today that may not have been if he wouldn't have charged. And that's with every one of these guys. Leland Norton, those guys that bailed out of the plane. Every descendant they have today, in a way, owes their life to Leland Norton. You know?
At that moment, Leland Norton's decision to say, hey, let me steady this plane, get out of here.
Yeah.
Just that little moment, that was such a fork in the road. If you look at it on a grand scale like that, you pull back a little bit. Mm-hmm. None of those kids, none of those grandkids, nothing.
Exactly.
And then this guy, man, wow. Okay, let's put it in, you have a son.
Right.
And your son goes to war like this, right?
Yeah.
He's in the Philippines fighting, and you get word that this happened, but this is your son. I mean, what do you feel when you read that?
Devastating at that point, but it's that pride, and but
man, how proud would you be though?
it's not going to replace your kid,
right?
Though. But yeah, that pride's got to be something.
Man. You got to. God, that would be just so heavy to read that. Know that your boy did.
Yeah.
Oh man, he had to be.
Tim No, like I said, I found that article, the Redlands native we talked about in our first episode, when his mom finally got word of what happened, because she initially just told he was killed, and then she wrote that she was very proud to know that he had died that way. But then she said she'd rather have her son back.
Of course.
You know.
But man, if it's gonna go, you want your.
Oh yeah, I mean, I mean, that's why we're doing this show, because I'm obsessed with this kind of stuff, you know. But it's very, because of his actions, he's going to live on forever in that sense. So that's pretty damn cool when you think about it.
Is his family still local?
I'm not sure. I found some Facebook links. Some of his family definitely is, because like I said, he has a statue, he has a park. I think there's an elementary school named after him, which is awesome. A lot of the
props to Riverside for that.
Hell yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
When I looked in their Facebook and I started reading the comments, a lot of them were, he was married to my aunt, or that's my second cousin, or whatever. So there's a lot of familiar. So they're definitely in the area. I don't know about his son. That was specifically what I thought of, but there's definitely family in the area, and they have very good reason to be proud, right?
Absolutely, man. Jeez, what a great story. Man, those are the kind that are
Ismael Villegas, and again, I hope I'm pronouncing
Ismael Villegas.
Right. Yeah.
You guys know anybody in Riverside, share this over there to them, man. Big props to them and their family, and god dang, what a good story.
Yeah. So.
Man, I love, dang, that's a crazy one.
Yeah, I think we're going to go Riverside the next 2 episodes, probably.
Riverside?
Same area. Yeah. One more World War II.
Every time I hear Casablanca now, I'm going to think of this
That's
guy.
good, man. That's what we should think of, right? When you think San Bernardino, you shouldn't think of some of the necessarily negative things that people think. Think about all the people that have come from here. And again, when I was in Iraq, I was in the same area the whole time. We went for a month to this place called Butler Range, and we were just training the Iraqi troops for a month. And this fucking dude gets on the truck that's showing us around. He's a big buff dude. He's got a machine gun. I start talking to him, oh, where are you guys at in the country? And he's like, oh, we were up in the Joff. I got wounded, blah, blah, blah. Badass dude. I said, where are you from? He said, San Bernardino. I'm like, oh, shit, I'm from fucking Mentone, So I was like, there's the streets are littered with people right now that are fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan and all. It's still serving their country all over these places. So let's think about those people before you start thinking about the other kind of stuff.
Man, if you guys know them or related to them, shoot us a message. We'd love to talk to you. We actually got in contact with Huff Stutler from our episode 1, a friend of Tim No, and she's been sending us pictures of his medals, and we've been in contact with her. Or the niece. I keep saying sister.
Yeah.
Steve's niece. And we're going to do a little cemetery tour that we're going to start putting content up. We're going to go visit some of the graves of some of these heroes, and we'll be putting that up on the YouTube channel. So please like, subscribe, and comment. And if you have any show ideas or anything, let us know.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Sorry about the coughing. I've been yelling all day, so it's my mouth's a little dry. I apologize for that.
And we will be back next week, guys. Thanks for listening.